Sign up to Bityard today, deposit $100 to qualify for the wallet token airdrop. Also take part in the USDT perpetual testing period for a chance to win a brand new iPhone 13. Take a look on my Telegram for further details. Hello everybody, welcome back to Wrecked City. This is the Wrecked City channel, rebranding probably for the next month or two, and let's have a look at how devastating this chart is and how devastating it's likely to be. So there is a CPI report coming out today, so we're going to know about inflation figures. Has inflation peaked? Has it got worse? Is it better? We just don't know. And that's going to happen today, from what I understand, probably UK time, about 2:30 or thereabouts. So just as we've seen yesterday, and well, for a long time now, just as we keep seeing, volatility is probably the name of the game. When it comes to Bitcoin though, obviously my buy order was filled, was it yesterday? And that was 31,350. My next buy order I'm sliding in at 27,000. Although I do believe that if we do go down much lower and break down below the summer lows, which is obviously this area we're talking about, the 29,000. If we do go lower than that, I think our destination is more or less probably going to be heading towards 24, right? 24. But I'm going to get myself in there at about 27 because you know me, I like to front run targets, and that's where I'll be front running, 27,000, just to get in there. Just got to get in there because, as you all know, my trading strategy is based around Bitcoin, trading Bitcoin into altcoins and then back into Bitcoin, and then on and on and on and on and on and on and on. So Bitcoin is my overall balance. So since taking profit around 50, about 52 to 54, can't remember exactly where, but it was in the when the Omicron was creeping around the corner. Didn't want to stick around for too long. I went into a cash position for the first time, really, and it wasn't loads. I took, I can't remember how many Bitcoins, but it was quite a few, but it was less than half, and the rest has been cash. And then I've just been sitting in that, buying back incrementally, as we all know, 40,600, 35,000, 31,500, and maybe even 27. So whether or not you decide that that's a winning strategy, I couldn't really it's up to you what you want to think. It's good enough for me to sit around and press buttons on a for a living. Anyway, see, this is effectively my job, believe it or not. So nice and relaxing as we go down, but altcoins not the case. And I was saying yesterday, we're on the live stream anyway, we're coming back to square one for a lot of these altcoins, which obviously if you're sitting in large altcoin positions is not a good place to be. Back to square one. Probably, for a lot of people, it's much lower than square one. They might be feeling some significant pain. But for those of you who employ this style of trading, which is Bitcoin being your balance, I use the analogy of saying, look, let's just say you have half a Bitcoin, right? You have half a Bitcoin today, you'll have half a Bitcoin tomorrow. In a week, you'll have half a Bitcoin. In a year, you'll have half a Bitcoin. In fact, 10 years from now, you'll have half a Bitcoin. The idea is that half a Bitcoin, obviously it fluctuates. It was a lot higher than this in the past, but previously it was a lot lower than this in the past. It will always be half a Bitcoin, and when the time is right, you flip that Bitcoin into an altcoin, and the best place for an altcoin to be is absolutely on its ass, which is where they're all going at the moment. Which is, this is a really good situation for those of you who trade in the same way that I do. When it comes to spot trading, I really think that this is probably the best way. Why would you trade into fiat currencies unless, of course, you see something horrendous around the corner like we felt around here? But generally, why would you? Why would you? I mean, it generally goes up over time, and if you're going to take profit, why not take profit into something that goes up over time anyway? You see where I'm coming from, right? So anyway, what are we looking at? So we've got the short signal that's obviously played out. We saw that a couple of weeks ago, and obviously that's played out to a decent extent. The short signal was generated around these zones, around the 38, 39, and that's yielded so far from the top to the bottom, 25% move. That's pretty decent, actually, if you think about what that type of signal generates. Ichimoku cloud signal down to a significant support, which is what it is. This isn't a continuation of a signal. This is a signal that says we're gonna go down. It's gonna be a plummet down. I said it would take up to 2 weeks usually for that sort of thing to play out. It took about a week and a half. There you go. Wham bam. Thank you, ma'am. back down to a significant support. So that one, as far as that signal has largely played out, I would say. And now we've got our weekly, which is generated. Now, Itchy Clouds, I love them. You know, they do some epic moves when the signals are generated, and we've had some serious moves from these in the past. You know, there's some Itchy Clouds, they generate 10x's. You know, and we've seen that in the past. In fact, on the Patreon, where I teach the Itchy Cloud, I showed it on the FET AI chart, and we didn't even see where it went. I said, look, this is a signal, this is how you play the signal, the entry point is here, the exit point will be along down the line, and yeah, I mean, later on, obviously after making that tutorial, that signal that I taught effectively yielded over a 10x, but from the entry point to the exit point, which was not the bottom or the top, you got a 10x out of it, which is a good signal. But when we look at these signals on weeklies, for crypto at least anyway, they can be a little misleading because crypto is so volatile, so fast moving, that sometimes the weekly signals are probably of all the indicators, probably the worst one, because it's so lagging. You know, every single tick takes a whole week. Anything can happen in a week, and I'm expecting some serious things to happen today, just to do with the CPI. So the CPI, obviously, they're going to digest all these different figures and come out with is inflation higher or lower? Has it peaked? Has it got worse? What's the deal? The expectation is that it's actually peaked, right? That's the expectation. Now, I find it very difficult to digest all this information myself, because as we all know, there's been all kinds of things go on outside of just general inflation, like war in the Ukraine, and obviously the food prices and the fuel prices as a result of that. Then we've got China lockdown and supply chain issue. Basically insult to injury when it comes to trying to conquer some kind of inflation. So everybody's feeling the pinch, but at the same time, nobody wants really to be sat in a cash position while inflation is ridiculously high. It's counterintuitive. It's not what you want, but it's the best of a bad bunch, unfortunately. Where else are you going to stick your money? I mean, obviously, I'm putting my money into Bitcoin bit by bit by bit, because my goal is just a little bit further down the line. You know, I've got the vision. I can see it. I've never actually photoshopped laser eyes onto myself, but I do see it. I see where it's going. I want to take part in this market, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm looking for instant returns on this. Clearly not. No, certainly not. This is just a trading strategy. You buy low, you sell high. You buy low, you sell high. You buy low, you sell high. That's just the way it goes. And the only thing you can really do in this market currently is incrementally buy lower. That's the only thing you can really do for Bitcoin specifically. Altcoins, that might work out for you as well, but at the moment I would say that altcoins are pretty much a no-go zone. Allow them to go down to square one, and when the time is right and the signals are there and they're generated and we're ready for those 5, 10, 20x's, then you alternate that Bitcoin into some of the altcoins, and we start to play the game again. So at the moment, it's almost like the end of a game of Monopoly, right? At the end of a game, it's finished, it's done, you're packing it away, and you're getting ready to play again, right? If you love Monopoly that much. And so we get the board pieces are all getting set out. The bank is counting out the cash. Everybody's been dealt with their things. The altcoins are going back down to where they started from, and guess what? Your Bitcoin balance remains exactly the same. It is, whatever it is that you've got. That is your Bitcoin balance, and we will alternate into altcoins when the time is right. So lower prices are great. Wrecked altcoins are also great because they offers way more returns when it comes and the time is right, and the time is not quite right. So we're looking for the CPI today. Personally, I can't really gauge in any way which way it's going to go. The Dixie is still dancing around at its peak, but as we all know, you can't really fight the Fed. If we have harder inflation than previous, and I think there's a chance that we might, we'll see the Dixie move up, probably up towards its next major target, which is about 106. So quite high from here if we were to move up, where I do think if we don't see positive inflation reports at this stage this month, we'll see a peak next month. And if we do see that, we'll see a Dixie likely sort of move up, meander up towards this top area where it will peak. And this is where, in an ideal world, this is what I'm kind of looking for. It's obviously we want inflation to peak. That's a given. We want that. But I'm undecided that it's going to be today. I think if anything, it's most likely going to be next month where we start to see decent figures, and we might get the Dixie run up towards that top there. And if that is the case, if we do get a run up towards that 106, 107 area, I'm going to go pretty hard. Like I started off when I sold my pieces of Bitcoin around 54. At the time, I was 60% crypto and 40% cash. Do you know what I am now? It's pretty hard to say it out loud. I'm 70% cash, 30% crypto, and I've not really done that much. All I've done is incrementally buy back. So it's my portfolio has clearly suffered. My overall balance has clearly suffered as a result of this huge downtrend. But look, I'm poorer today than I was a few months ago. I'm certainly richer today than I was a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. So this is the general idea, right? And if you think about it, and in that kind of, if you put that lens over it, that should help to calm yourself down. Of course, if you're in UST and Luna, then that probably won't apply to you, unfortunately. Right, so we do have the short signal on the weekly. That's not good. We would be targeting areas down to about 24, which comes in between the 200 simple and the 200 exponential on the weekly. These are all very realistic targets now, and I would certainly look at front running that to get in there at 27. Because if anything does bring us down there, and it's a big stabbing wick, you know, you don't want to be market ordering, you know, and you don't really want to be trying to get it on the money. You just want to get in, because we won't stay down there for particularly very long. I'm talking like months, certainly years, and you know, you'll look back in hindsight and go, oh, I should have just, you know, bit the bullet. So you get in there. That's where I'm getting in. Look, it's going to fluctuate. It's going to go all over the place. Today, probably more than any day, as we move further and further and further towards the CPI report. So we've got to keep our eyes on the prize. If inflation has peaked, it's going to be good across the board for all markets. I prefer the concept that we go down further and the Dixie goes up as well, allowing us to get orders in a little bit lower. And you know, obviously I've told you about my general balanced portfolio at the moment, where it's you know, still mostly in cash at this point, because the crypto that I do have has devalued so drastically since December. But when it comes to my stocks and shares, I've been in 90% cash since I sold the you know, around, but just as Omicron was peaking, you know, and I was expecting a big flash dump, which kind of what we got. I thought that stocks would get hit anyway, just as they did in the March when the virus finally, you know, first came about, and it was like history repeating itself. And I've been in a 90% cash position for stocks and shares since then, you know, finding it very difficult to really navigate an entry point. Now, we were looking at this yesterday, and we looked at it on the live stream. This is Nasdaq, and Nasdaq again has come down to a very significant area of potential support. Is it enough to hold, though? That is the main question. So we'll take ourselves off the 4-hourly to start with. There's no need for all that mess, and we'll take off all these indicators, because it is simply just a matter of support and resistance. And look, this should also put things in perspective for you. Would you like to partake in this market? Yes. Does it only go up? Yes, it does. The only thing that you need to concern yourself about is time. And look, you know, this is the idea, isn't it? This is Bitcoin, this is Nasdaq. They're charts that only go up. You know, you got to bite the bullet if you want to get involved in it at some point. So let's think about areas of getting back in. This is, as you can see, a support. It's not the main support. It's you know, the main support I would really say would be arguably down here. This would be a sell your kidney kind of vibe if we came down to this level, which is the pre-pandemic top basically. So we hit this area. March kicked in, and then we had our V-shaped recovery. Now we're coming back down to earth. Look, we look at something like the MOEX. Yeah, the Russia's stock exchange. Obviously, when all the sanctions hit them, they came all the way back down. Initially, back down to its post-pandemic, pre-pandemic levels, and then lower than that. And that was with all the sanctions on top. Look, I'm not saying that we can't do that. It could happen, but we see Russia's stock market basically hovering around this level at the moment. I know that there's a lot of that is artificial, but all markets, as we all know, are relatively artificial at this stage, which is why we're feeling the pain right now. But I'm not really holding out for that level. But if it were to happen, I think my kidney would be gone. It would be on the darknet immediately, and hopefully there'll be some willing buyers, because I would be looking to get into all markets around this level, all of them, any of them, and this would be a decent indicator for an absolute low and a absolute epic entry point. But for the moment, this is the first time I would say that I would be looking at an area of significance for a potential entry point for the Nasdaq. Now, there is still a lot of reasons why the Nasdaq could come down as well, with all markets, Bitcoin and just general traditional markets, all major indices still looking to come down for all the reasons that we mentioned. And this is why we're keeping our eyes peeled and our ear to the ground when it comes to the CPI report. It's because we don't know. Charts are becoming less relevant at the moment because there's bigger forces at play. So we can look at TA and can do TA, and TA works to an extent. Like I say, we've got the short signal from Bitcoin a couple of weeks ago. That's played out to a 25% move. That's pretty decent. But generally speaking, TA is serving less and less and less of a problem, of a purpose, while the bigger things outside of the charts are the main players. So we've got to respect that. So even though we're at this major support here, which is a decent one, it's pretty strong. We spent a fair bit of time being below it, and then when we finally broke above it, we went to town, came down to retest it, and then finally went up for a peak. So this does have significance for the Nasdaq, and there is correlation between traditional markets and Bitcoin, especially when it comes to the Nasdaq. So let's think about this for a moment. We have Dixie still struggling at its peak. We have Nasdaq at a significant support, alongside Bitcoin also toying with the idea of being at its major significant support of this last 18-month period, right? So it's make or break, isn't it? Basically, make or break. Yeah. And when I say break, I'm not saying that Bitcoin's going to plummet all the way down to zero. That's obviously not the case. But if it were to break, then I think the next major target would be down here. 24,000 would be a very realistic opportunity, and the next one for Nasdaq would just be dancing around the 11,000, right? And again, the lower we go, the more interesting it is. There's everyone and their mothers are looking to offload some cash into some form of asset that's going to appreciate over time, and timing the market is pretty difficult for the most part, especially in this kind of environment. However, you do have to get back in at some point, and everybody wants back in, and they're looking for any kind of opportunity to get back in, and the CPI report could be that, right? It could be that. Even if it's just a tiny bit lower than it was previously, it'll be enough for the confidence to resume, at least in the short term. In the grand scheme of things, though, if we did resume, this is still a consolidation vibe, right? We are still consolidating for the Nasdaq in this giant consolidation area. We could come up to the top over the next couple of months. That'd be a 10, 12, 15% move. This is a monthly chart here that we're looking at, by the way. So we could be still going up significantly, but in the grand scheme of things, still consolidating. Same with Bitcoin. We're not really looking for any major breaks on Bitcoin at the moment. We are seeing a series of highs, lows, lower highs and lower lows. So significant downtrend still formed, and there's really no sort of there's no real let up on it, really. We've got to look at these lower term time frames, starting really as low as I would like to go, really, which is the 4 hourly. The 4 hourly is showing some signs of divergence now creeping up, but it's heavily weak. Being shorted and sold off at the 10 exponential is no good place to be. But breaking out from this area, and especially closing or getting above the 31,800, it could easily allow us to move all the way up to the top side of this range, which could bring us up to around 700. Realistic areas, realistic targets, and much of this is going to be decided today, depending if inflation appears to have peaked or not. There's a lot of evidence to say that it could do based on the charts. There's a lot of reason to be buying these areas for traditional markets and Bitcoin based on charts. But realistically, the numbers that are being crunched that are going to be shat out today at around 2:30 GMT, that will tell us really which direction it's going to go. Okay, it's and generally I would expect lower just based on the chart's long-term timeframes anyway. The long-term timeframes would suggest lower, and that's fine as well. Like I say, coming back to square one for altcoins is a great place to be. Focusing on Bitcoin as your fuel to trade with is my main strategy. Whether you employ that yourself is up to you. So with a long-term projection of a little bit lower anyway, potentially, but let's wait for that report. Let's see what they say. All eyes on the prize. Get your popcorn at the ready. Let's listen to those old men around the table. who are going to decide the short-term future for asset prices. What a world. What a life. Right, but thank you for watching. Hope you have a nice day anyway. Feel free to join the Telegram. All the links in the description below. Have a nice day. Take it easy.